Convene. Welcome to your city council meeting for June 8th, 2026. I'm Mayor Blackburn. I'll call us to order. First, we're going to silence our cell phones. Then we're going to take a moment to remember that as we gather today, we respectfully acknowledge that the land on which the city of Hood River sits is the ancestral home of indigenous peoples. This includes the Nez Perce, Umatilla, Warm Springs, Yakima, and other tribes who stewarded this land for generations. We recognize the lasting impact of colonialism and commit to working together for a more just and sustainable future. Please join me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Because of staff being caught in traffic, we're going to change the order of events, and urban renewal will be a bit later in the evening. Are there any other changes to the agenda, Abigail?
No, thank you, Mayor. There are no changes.
Next is the time for business from the audience. I don't have a sheet in front of me. Jen, is there anyone online who wishes to address us? Thank you. Thank you. Come on up, Mr. Perrin.
Thank you. I wanted just to start with that. This is the first time I've kind of been coming in front of the council. Purchased the buildings about almost 30 years ago. And back in the day when I was restoring the buildings and everything, there was nothing in the top floors. And so they were just in horrible condition. So everything I did was improving. And so everybody was super supportive. And now that we've, in a whole different time and things are a lot more complicated than they were back then. It's been, a rough journey trying to understand the process. Abigail's been fantastic in helping me through that process. And I appreciate all of your guys' time. I know you guys have spent a lot of time on this, wrangling it back and forth. But it seems like Abigail's come up with an alternative that will take us into the time given, allowing the council to have time to review it holistically, the parking, whether hotels should have a spots and all of that. And so the 3rd Street, 3rd and Oak, I have a loading zone there, and they put in that expanded curb on the urban renewal. And so it is a really difficult spot now for an actual loading zone. Just a half a block, only 3 spaces down on Oak, there's another loading zone, which is a normal back end park type loading zone. So Abigail's suggestion of, would it be possible to relocate that, create a paid spot there instead, which works much better because that spot's not the greatest. And then put move that loading zone to the 3rd Street. We were thinking of the top close to the corner, but after talking to all of my businesses in there, we have about 30 businesses inside of the 2 buildings. I have the 2 largest buildings in downtown with the most tenants of any place in town. They are saying that might not be the best spot. We should put it at the bottom of the block, because then people would be able to come in, go right into a loading zone. And there isn't the pedestrians that are crossing right there at 3rd and Oak. If people want to get into that first spot as a loading zone, they would have to go out into the flow of pedestrians to get back in there. So I tend to agree with that. So I think the process, I'm not sure. I think the process is I ask the council to allow this to be something that you guys can consider. And that is trading the 30-minute spot for a spot down. And I am hoping that I don't know how the process works,
Mr.
but
Perrin, that was
yes.
the timer. So if you could wrap up.
yeah. So I'm hoping that I can be in the process to where it just doesn't make the decision. I can have people that come in that are supporting a 10-minute spot for the buildings at the bottom of the block would be something that would be considered and not just decided, but allow me to present to the council, have people here with testimony showing why a 10-minute spot is far better than a 30-minute loading zone.
Thank you. Now, a public hearing. I will read the script. Chris, are you ready?
Thank you.
This is the time scheduled for a public hearing regarding the approved budget for the 26-27 fiscal year and the use of state shared revenue for the city of Hood River. The approved budget uses state shared revenue as a general fund revenue source, supporting police, fire, EMS, parks, engineering, and planning programs. We will now take public testimony. City Recorder, has anyone registered to speak or provided written testimony? The public hearing on fiscal year 26-7 approved budget and use of state shared revenue is now closed. That's what my script says. Now is it your turn?
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
So the Budget Committee deliberated over the course of 3 meetings, and the proposed budget was approved by the committee as presented at the 3rd meeting on May 13th, 2026. The fiscal 2026-27 budget continues ongoing operation programs and service levels from the prior fiscal year. Total FTE for city personnel is unchanged. Major initiatives budgeted for the fiscal year include funds for a comprehensive utility rate study, parking management study, and bond planning. General fund also includes a transfer in support of the building fund, and the overall budget proposes a loan to the urban renewal districts in support of housing production from the Affordable Housing Reserve. Additionally, the budget establishes the ODOT jurisdictional transfer reserve and contributions to the PERS stabilization reserve. Public Works and capital improvement planning includes funds for continued improvement on critical water, wastewater, storm line pipe replacement, as well as road repairs across town. Large public work projects include wastewater treatment plant upgrades and improvements to the Jackson Park Collin Field area. All of these are outlined in the 5-year capital improvement plan within the proposed budget. A summary of the $53.5 million in budget appropriations of the approved budget appears in the resolution 2026-11, and staff is recommending approving resolutions 2026-11 and 2026-12, adopting the budget for fiscal 26-27 for the city of Hood River, imposing and categorizing tax levies, and electing to receive state shared revenues. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We all were here many Wednesdays, a few Wednesdays back for the work leading up to this. This is the actual. Any comments or questions for Chris? Anna, and then Gladys.
I just, I read in the memo and you just mentioned that, the fiscal year, major initiatives budgeted for the fiscal year include the parking management study, but we decided maybe we aren't going to do that. It's just included in case we decide we are going to do it, right? That's just, it's still up in the air, right? We're definitely not allocating that money, right? Didn't we have that conversation? I guess it's more a conversation or question for you. Like it's a placeholder in case we do move forward with it, but it's not predetermined that we definitely are. Is that correct?
Well, so staff has been working off of a parking management study. There were several issues that were raised during the budget committee with regards to, well, and actually not at council, right? So things like best practices for downtown parking, loading zones, right? Hotels. So that is in the budget, and we are actually out right now with an RFP for that. Now, that doesn't obligate the city to engage anyone, but we have issued an RFP for the downtown best practices parking study.
Is that the same as the update that we talked about maybe not doing, or this is different? I guess I want a clarification for that, because I remember us having the conversation during a council meeting of that, where was the money coming from, and were we moving forward with that, or were we just going to do an update of parking study? Like, were we going to do an update, or I guess I just wanted clarification on that. Is that you're moving forward with an RFP for that parking study, or is that different than what?
I apologize if I misunderstood, but I had taken it that question had come up as if we wanted to do it at all, and I thought the consensus of council was that we wanted to move forward. So if I'm misremembering, let me know. Having an RFP out does not mean that we have to award it, but that was, I thought, the council direction. Sorry, Chris, if you had more to say.
Yeah, no, that's my understanding as well. So, and then just to be clear, those are the funds that are allocated in the in lieu fund. So I believe there's $35,000 and change that was in the parking in lieu fund, and
That's
that is the
right,
parking,
yeah.
that's the parking study that's allocated.
Okay. Yeah, I remembered we had that conversation, but I thought we decided we would earmark it, but we weren't definitely moving forward. We were going to talk more about parking, but I might be misremembering that too. Thank you.
I recall that we had all agreed that we were, and that one of the other pieces that you didn't mention, but I know that we discussed it, was to also include parking in lieu as well, and that we weren't going to do a full study, but just an update on certain sections like the hotel
Yeah.
loading zones, in lieu, and a couple others that you just mentioned. So that was my recollection 2 meetings ago is when that took place.
I was confused by what you just said the first. So your recollection was that we were.
That we were going to do just an update, not necessarily a full study, but an update on certain sections, because the last time we did a full study was in 2019.
Yeah.
And that there were some pieces that were brought up 2 meetings ago, like the hotel passes, for example, was one of them. Parking in lieu was one of them, a couple others. And so we said, we're not going to do a full scope, but we will do an update to these sections. That was my recollection.
Yeah, then the items that I had, we had talked about doing an overall update to the downtown parking sort of methodology and best practices, right? Just sort of a revisiting of that. Then I also had added from council comments, the hotel parking pass. There was potential app options or 15-minute intervals, fee in lieu, right? A couple others, about 5 items.
And do those items constitute the project we've put out for bid, or are those a small part of a larger, or can you help me understand?
Yeah, those are parts of the larger study.
Yep. So what I'm hearing is Anna thinks we agreed to not do too much. Gladys and Chris, to my ear, said the same sort of highlighted items, but I think I heard you say that not as a part of a much larger, but rather you were describing sort of a few a la carte items. Did I get that?
Yeah, that was my recollection of it, but I don't know if anyone else has any other comments.
But I think what Abigail and Chris are moving forward with is substantially not what Anna and Gladys have just said. Am I tracking this? Doug?
My understanding is it's not a full-blown parking study to negate or update the entire 2019 study. There were things that were planned for update,
All right,
and we asked for more than what was planned.
that's correct.
So not a full study, never was a full study, was an update to the 2019 study. And we asked for specific reasons, parking in lieu, so we said, make sure that's in there as well.
Yes.
So update plus is what.
Update plus.
You started this. Does update plus agree with your memory?
I thought we were going to talk about it more before we move forward, but I could be the most remembering that. It is that, I mean, I don't know, I thought we needed it, like, I don't know. I thought we were going to talk about it more before it was moving forward, but I could be misremembering. So I'm curious what everybody else is remembering.
Adam, what do you want to say?
Yes, I was pulling up the minutes from May 11th, which were approved on May 26th. And there's a motion here. Now I got to find the page again. Let's see, it was Councilor Stupina, seconded by Council President Rivera. I move to direct staff to look at adding the in lieu parking to the shortened study that is being done right now, if it can come within contingency budget.
Shortened study. Okay.
Yes.
We haven't even looked at it.
Yeah, I think we've been calling it an update. But there was a motion passed unanimously. So I guess that's where I got the, like, we are doing the shortened study and it will include in lieu as part of it.
I think this is important to note because for whatever reason, there's a perception in the public that we're redoing every single parking study point that we've ever done. and we're just going to do study after study. That is not the case. This is a addendum to the study from 2019, and then we wanted some specific language around what you just discussed to be included in that as well.
That's correct.
I appreciate that. That sounds good to me.
Did you have anything that you wanted to bring up that we can discuss now, or do you have any concerns with that?
I just think that like the whole, like, we need to set a time aside where we can have a specific conversation, like a work session or something where we can address parking. And we don't need to do that right now. This is about adopting our budget. I just wanted clarification on, was this plan to be included? And so, yeah, that's what I was just looking for clarification on that, but we don't need to discuss it right now.
So we are still on Chris bringing us the budget. And go ahead, class.
I do just want to bring up three things for the budget. In the series of budget meetings, we have allocated $15,550 to small grants. So I want to raise three things. I would propose that we have general fund contributions that go to the small grant fund moving forward. I was actually talking to Chris and like, what's a good number to allocate so that in the future, should we have any sort of, this would be used as contingency funds. Some of the conversations that I've had with a couple of you have heard from community members is sponsoring youth sports, baseball, soccer, all of that. And that the second piece that we allocate at least $5,000 of the current $15,550 to nonprofits for mental health support, something that we heard from our listening sessions with individuals who are from the immigrant community that are being challenged right now. So I guess those are the three things that I just wanted to bring up for consideration so that we can add this to this current budget.
I reckon we should take those one at a time. Help me understand, but it would be council amending this budget to include some or any of those. Is that your wishes for
Yes,
for this
yes,
budget?
yeah. For this budget, for sure that we allocate at least $5,000 of our $15,000 in small grants to a nonprofit for mental health support, and that we allocate, let's say, $1,000 for sponsorship of youth sports. And third, that not necessarily for this budget, or maybe Chris help me out, but that we do allocate a specific percentage of the general fund to the small grants moving forward so that we have more than the 15,000 for next year's budget.
So I can walk through the budget impacts of those. So in the budget, the small grants fund has an opening fund balance of, I believe it's 15,500, 15,000, of which is allocated or appropriated within the budget, but with no specific purpose. Right. So as either part of this action or a separate council action, it is well within council's authority to appropriate $5,000 for mental health and earmark that $1,000 goes towards sort of youth sports. That has absolutely no budget impact. It's just making a clarification as to where those appropriations should be specifically directed. Now, to the third, there is a budget impact here. What is proposed is an additional contribution to the small grants. If it was done as part of this budget, it would have a impact or a potential impact on the budget, depending on where the funds came from. If it is a policy decision with regards to something that would be considered in a future budget, then I don't know that that is something has any impact here. That would really be a policy decision whether or not that's something that would, that the council wants to consider in future budgets. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the latter of the two, not for
Yeah.
this budget, but that we have a discussion to allocate dollars for next year's budget.
Yeah. So from my perspective, that's a big topic, right? And I would suggest that either happens as part of a sort of council motion or in the lead up or as part of the budget committee for next year. Now it's very, very different if you want to do something for this budget year, but for next budget year, I would say that would be part of that process.
Well, then I guess help me out. So I think we can have a discussion about the current funds to allocate to mental health and youth sports. But for the second or the third piece, maybe I look to both of you for better direction of, it sounds like that might not be a discussion for tonight's meeting, but that we maybe add it at a future meeting to discuss that.
Yeah, I would if the intent is to not to do that for this budget,
No.
right, then that has no impact on the appropriation, has no impact on the resolutions, has no impact on sort of this portion of the adoption of the budget. Abigail, I'll defer to you on just protocol. It would be added to a separate council item, either this council or sort of a future council. The third aspect is it could just be part of the overall budget process. As far as an appropriation at that time, but probably should be discussed by council before, the draft budget is issued.
Thanks, Chris. I would agree that I think there are a number of policy questions about what the criteria would be and what, how carefully you would want to monitor or audit that. And there might be some administrative costs that come with that. So I would want to have a more comprehensive conversation about that if you choose to do so.
Yeah, just a couple things in direct response. I support the allocations for the two items that Councilor Rivera just suggested. I also suggest, I think it's like we just have a bucket of $15,000 sitting there. There's no real intentional way. I mean, this is one way to do it, but I think what Councilor Rivera is saying is, let's be a little bit more intentional as we go into budget discussions and not like in the 11th hour or not, maybe prepare the budget committee to discuss those sorts of things and wrap them in. Like I would be in favor of that and understand that it's a secondary thing, not today, but I think it just allows us to be more proactive in how we think about those types of disbursements too. Because it could change year by year and whatnot. So I think it would help organize us better.
In my opinion, giving away money is a serious job and a lot of work. Tonight, we're just deliberating whether to approve a $53.5 million budget, and this is a $15,000 topic. I think that we should be really careful about getting into the grant-making business because there's excellent causes that you suggest. There are other excellent causes out there, and we could spend a whole lot of time choosing among excellent causes, and I think that we would be overwhelmed by that. So I'm going to discourage us from soliciting or even entertaining nonprofit applications. We have deviated from that guiding principle a little bit. We helped with the trolley one time. We helped with the warming shelter, but I don't think it would, I don't want us to become more of a grant-making entity. Grant.
I agree with the mayor. Also, for us to decide this at the 11th hour is sort of us swooping in at the 11th hour, deciding to allocate these funds in this manner without us discussing it at all in advance of this meeting and allocating it in the last 5 minutes of this 11th hour process, to borrow that phrase. So I would not be in favor of allocating that particular grant fund in this particular way. And then the future budget allocations, I'm not interested in entertaining at all because that's a decision for next year's budget committee.
But Amanda, you were.
I do want to bring up that this is not the first time that I discussed this. I actually did bring this up in our very last budget meeting. I didn't bring up the youth sports, but I did talk about allocating dollars for mental health support for immigrant community members, specifically because we had listening sessions for adults and for teens, and that was an ask that was made, that there was more support needed. So it's definitely not the first time that I that I bring this piece up, and I did bring it up in our last budget meeting. I could even forego not dedicating any funds towards like sponsoring a youth sport, but for sure the fiscal support for mental health support was something that I think we should really absolutely consider. And I did bring this up in our last budget meeting.
Amanda.
I'm just curious about like the history of this, I guess, like what, has it just been sitting there and not being used? Has it been used for other things? Like what?
Yeah, so originally the Small Grants Fund, I believe it was established, there was a brick buying program.
I think I'm looking at, well, he might know better, but I think it's the dish selling price.
Yeah, Stratton Garden was, I think.
Come up to the microphone, please.
Sorry. Yeah, it originally helped funds collected for the bricks that people have their names on at the fountain. And so I might want to double check that the monies in the balance aren't dedicated for Stratton Garden maintenance. But I'm not sure. That's just off the top, that's just off the cuff. So I don't bet on that.
It's in our budget book. It's the other grants or small grants distribution. It's 15,550 and it's in our current budget
No,
book.
yes, and so it has, but it is the small grants budget, that has been a carried over budget. It has been for at least the last 4 years or so. I don't know the history of it before that. We just haven't, it is not of the funds that are allocated in the budget. It has an appropriation should council elect to use it, but it's not a staff appropriated or a staff sort of discretioned fund. To your point, I think that it is there are the funds there. Staff can look and see what the rules are regarding small grants. Council is always throughout the year able to bring up where those funds should be directed to if there is a specific use for them. So it's not necessarily something that has to be decided here. But it absolutely can be discussed among council and for this year, for this fiscal year, can be spent up to the balance of the small grants if it's permissible.
Well, then I would suggest that we discuss what Councilor Rivera is suggesting in an agenda item, because I do believe that based on the output that we had from all those listening sessions and whatnot, that's an important thing. It's not just like somebody came to us and said, hey, I've got a cool nonprofit. How about we spend X amount of dollars? This is something that I think is directly related to our council goals for the year, input from the community. There's been a lot of time and consideration that's gone into it versus, we've got some money to spend. Why don't we support this good cause? So I'm happy to have that debate with councilors and discuss it. I'm also happy to vote for it now, but I don't want to jam up the budget process.
A good way to find out how we all feel is to have a motion and vote on it. I don't know if anyone is prepared to put that together at this moment, but I want to know what we, the majority, believe. Gladys.
I'm okay bringing up these items at another meeting, maybe 2 meetings from now, to not delay, but I still really want to make sure that we continue to have the discussion of allocating some dollars for mental health support in our community. But happy to table these items and move forward and for the suggested motion on page 4 for our budget.
Thanks, y'all. Anna?
I'll go ahead and make that motion then. I move the city council approve the resolution 2026-11 and 2026-12 adopting the budget for fiscal year 2026-27, imposing and categorizing tax levies and electing to receive state shared revenue.
By Cavallari,
Second.
second by Gaki. Further discussion?
I would just like to know when we can get that agenda item, or if we're saying we have to have a discussion of whether or not that's an agenda item now.
It sounds sort of comically meta in that way, but in fact, yes, like us deciding what we add to our agendas and to our work plan and to staff's workload is a legitimate concern. It comes up kind of often now. So I don't know how we all feel about wanting to prioritize, and I'm going to editorialize a little bit, how we will spend $15,000 instead of, the sweeping large policy issues that face the council, because our time is so precious. So I guess what I would suggest is I would like to hear a motion of whether to include this in a timely fashion as an agenda item upcoming. And then we can decide if we.
If I may, for a point of order, I think you already have a motion on the floor and I think, was there a second?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a motion.
So my suggestion would be to finish this one and then go back and to let me, and I don't think you necessarily need a motion to have me put something on a future agenda. I just need to know that a majority of you are directing me to do that.
Yes, and I guess just the spirit of dialectic, I think we've been getting a little bit permissive with our agenda, just saying, sure, I want to, and then when it comes, it's like, really, we're spending time on this? So I've been getting mixed messages
Yeah,
about that,
I
so I want
appreciate
us to
that.
be
Yeah, but let's finish this motion.
somewhat tidy about that. Can we vote on the first one? Okay, Gladys.
So in our last budget meeting, I brought this up and was told that at that time we weren't going to discuss it, but that we were going to discuss it on the final budget agenda. I did have a chance to at least mention this to Chris prior to this meeting as like a heads up. I'm going to bring this back up because in the last budget meeting, I was told that we weren't going to discuss it at that time, but that we would discuss it now before we like close due to our new budget starting July 1st. So that's why I'm bringing it up now and didn't continue to push on it at our last budget meeting in May.
There's a motion on the table. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Now, I would like to address this, like, I would like us to decide if we wish to, I think, as I said just a moment ago, in soonish, discuss this $15,500 small grants fund distribution. Is that the topic we're talking about? Yes.
I understand the challenges that you brought up, Mayor, and that Counselor Polson agreed to, and the intention isn't to add additional administrative work to staff, but that we did have some listening sessions. There's a lot that some of our partners are doing specific for our immigrant communities, but something that was brought up in a variety of sessions was the need for more ongoing support for mental health. So I still think that's really important for us to discuss, and that I'm not asking that we exhaust the full 15,000, that we give $5,000 of that currently to, it could either be one or two, however staff suggest, to the nonprofits that really are supporting mental health services in our community.
I would be in favor of talking about that. Is that what we're talking? Is that the question on the table?
Yeah,
I'm for
I
it.
think that's it. So I mean, I think Amanda's saying she would move to discuss this fund and this mental health focus. So she said move, so, no, she didn't. She said I'd be in favor. So, I mean, sorry, you guys, I feel like I'm being like,
Need a motion? I don't think so. That's what Abigail said.
Sorry, if I could clarify the scope of this conversation, is this, what you just said, Mayor, made me think that you're talking specifically about mental health funding, or is this a bigger question about nonprofit funding from the city?
I agree, that's an important question. Ben.
I would admit that I'm generally confused by all of this here because it sounded like, one, there was concern about whether this fund could even be dispersed because of some potential ties to Stratton Garden maintenance. That's what I thought I heard. Number two, it didn't sound like this was a fund that has been dispersed from in some time. It was, I believe Chris said that this is a carryover from a few years now. So I'm kind of confused about what the general policy, maybe not have one about the disbursement of these funds, because this is kind of, taken by surprise a little bit here. So philosophically, certainly in favor of those. Those are great things. I just, it feels a little bit, I don't know, I'm a little bit caught off guard by this conversation in terms of, since this is seemingly a relatively new thing, how we would decide to disperse this. Do I have options to choose from? Is it just kind of, I think this is, obviously we have the data from the listening sessions, but, is this just, I have an idea situation? So I would, again, while I'm philosophically certainly in support of those things, I'd kind of like a little bit more information on that if we've got it.
Doug?
I think what Councilor Rivera is trying to do, we don't really have a framework for this kind of thing. It's not supposed to be talked about during the budget is kind of what the feeling was. We don't generally do this at all, right? So I share the confusion in the process, but I want to make clear that I just think that Councilor Rivera has brought this up before. This is tied into council priorities and council goals for the year. It's not like hey, we got $15,000 around, let's do something with it. I think it's tied into goals and everything. I think we should discuss it. And I think we can, those of us that are in favor of it at that point, great. It would be good to get some direction from staff, like if going into the next budget cycle next year, is this something we should talk about beforehand as a council? And I know it's not a whole lot of money, but it is, sometimes we might, based on the work that we've done for the year and what we're supporting, we might want to do this sort of thing. And there's probably a less awkward way to go about it. I'll say.
I agree that I'm confused. I agree that, I think it's a bigger question than just, I think it's a worthy cause and something worth looking into, but I think when we say we have $15,000 of money that might be available for grants or for contribution towards a particular thing, I appreciate what the mayor said about we need to be careful about getting into the grant making business, because there is a lot of administration that gets tied to that. And if we're just saying we're going to start giving away money, well, what are the requirements for giving away that money? And I think we're like dangerously treading into some deep, dark waters here. So I agree with Amanda that we should talk about this more, but I think that it's a little bit more complex than just, hey, let's allocate this money, which I appreciate that Chris said we have the authority to do. But yeah, it's kind of out of left field.
Gladys?
My understanding from my check-in with Abigail is that today we were going to have a discussion about the emergency declaration for immigration, what we wanted to do if we wanted to extend that. One of the pieces that I had brought up to her and brought up in our budget meeting was that we haven't discussed if we were going to allocate any sort of funds. A while back when I had asked Chris at a council meeting, what sort of contingency funds do we have? I was told that we don't have anything. It was this small grants is our contingency fund. All the other dollars that we have are already allocated to other projects, to other services. So my intention isn't to catch folks off guard or to confuse folks. It's that we already have an existing fund. Can we allocate dollars from that existing fund for these services that we continue to have discussions about? So I would move that we continue to have a discussion around the 15,550 in small grants to potentially be allocated for mental health support services for the immigrant community.
Moved by Rivera.
Second.
Second by Stupina. Discussion. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Opposed, aye, motion passes.
Oh,
Oh,
I think there were
sorry,
a couple missing votes.
Sorry, opposed.
I'm not opposed to I guess I'm opposed.
We're voting.
Opposed.
Opposed? Cavallari opposed?
Councilor Colson,
I'm not sure.
was it yes?
I'm confused. Grant, was it a yes or a nay? Yes, in favor. Thank you. Chair votes aye, motion passes. So vote by vote of 6-1, we give staff direction to please put this on.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So
We give staff direction to please get this on the agenda so that we can make time to discuss it.
yes, and we can certainly start by researching the history of the fund, and we can send that out to you in an email as soon as we have that information. And then, go ahead.
I was gonna say that, so the two, obviously the sort of the rules are very defined, whether or not these are dedicated can be issued. I think the other thing is Will brought to my attention in the past. There is a old expired resolution that had outlined what were previous guidelines with regards to donations.
I think it was from 1995.
Yeah, and so we can also circulate that as a framework as far as how this was looked at and how it has been looked at in the past.
When you say donations, are those we're getting them or we're giving them?
Give it.
Yep, thank you.
And then to Councilor Rivera's point about whether to extend the icy emergency, that's not on this agenda. I had planned that for the next one because when I met with all of you, the agenda had already been set for today. Thank you.
all for that important conversation. That, did we approve the budget, Chris?
Yes.
I'm going to turn the page and go to the consent agenda. I will note we have an OLCC permit application. So what we're going to take number 2 off the consent agenda. And this is not quite in order, but there's a place advertising across from the taqueria selling wine and smokes and stuff. And I don't remember approving that, but maybe I did. And it's DBA or something or anything.
It was approved. It's been
Thank
a
you.
few months ago, but yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. So we'll take number 2 off and I would entertain a motion for 1 through 7 minus 2.
I move to approve the consent agenda except for item number 2.
Moved by Paulson,
Second.
second by Rivera. Discussion. I'll notice that Sandy appears on here a lot of times, so there's some great HR, Sandy, wherever you might be out there. Thank you. And this is so important for a smooth running organization to have this kind of stuff in order. And much of it has not been, I can gather by all the items on here. So good job, us.
Yeah, I would note that the payroll policy issues that are here are connected to the fact that we're moving from 24 pay periods a year to 26 pay periods because of some change in the IRS. So it is not a reflection of a organizational or structural issue. This is to be compliant with IRS required us to update some of our policies.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And all of our unions were consulted on these before they came to your agenda. Thanks.
Further discussion on the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Great. I would entertain a motion to approve item number 2 from the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve item number 2 from the consent agenda, but it's for Cork wine, not wine cork.
Moved by Cavallari. I assume that's a correct correction. I don't know.
Second.
Second by Paulson. Thank you. Discussion. Gladys?
I will abstain from OLCC permit applications. This is not a reflection of these establishment businesses or the owners. Rather, I object the fact that we don't have enough transportation options for people who visit these establishments. As a result, they may end up getting behind the wheel and putting themselves and others at risk. I'd like to highlight the broader public health responsibility that we hold. The recent adoption of code allowing transportation networks is a step forward, but access and capacity remains limited, especially during late hours and in our upper valley. If we and our county-wide partners are able to provide adequate transportation during late evenings and weekends, I will start approving OLCC applications.
Thank you. And just parenthetically, I have a little bit of a hobby of trying to call an Uber from Hood River. And recently I have again tried and no rides available. So that's kind of reassuring, like glad to know that, because for a while it was like, oh, they're going to come. And that didn't feel right because of the rules. So, yep. Is it moved and seconded?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. Discussion items, Dustin, who is, I think, on the road for a housing, or is Kevin filling in? Dustin.
I think the answer is yes.
There
Dustin is
Hello.
attending remotely from Central Oregon, and Mr. Liberty is here with us in person.
We all, I did not say, the monitors are not on, is that? Okay, so it's not
Oh,
an oversight. Okay, good. Take it off, folks. Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. This is just a quick update on the status of the Development Code Update project. Going to start with a brief background refresher before getting into the current status and next steps. You're probably familiar with this slide. purpose of the update. We're trying to make the code easier to use.
Sorry, I would like to see the slide, or shall we look in the packet, Kevin?
And let's share the screen.
I think we will have it on the screen in a moment if we can crane our necks.
Yeah.
I just am realizing it's so much worse for you, Amanda. You have like a super bad neck situation over there compared to Anna. Anna's living large over there.
There we go. Mayor, let's try it again.
Thank you.
Again, brief background refresher before we'll get into current status and next steps. As noted on the cover sheet for this agenda item, you'll find this in pages 93 to 95 of your packet. Code update has been a council priority since 2022. It's a comprehensive code reorganization and modernization. The intent is to maintain consistency with adopted policies, respond to changing state requirements, and ensure consistency with state law. We'll resolve a variety of internal conflicts and some missing pieces in the code, and we intend to improve the formatting and readability. The phase 1 code audit was funded entirely by DLCD through a grant. It included public engagement and outreach. It included a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment. A draft audit report was completed in July of 2024 and presented to the council, discussed by council, then refined. And so that final version of the audit report came to us in October of 2024. That report summarizes areas of the code to update based on code audit findings, included recommendations for approaches to code updates where more than one approach is possible. Code audit found that we need to update definitions and standards, improve housing and quote unquote middle housing provisions, clarify procedures and review processes, address inconsistencies and gaps, and ensure clear and objective standards specifically for housing development. We kicked off work on the code update earlier this year. Current status, we are, Dustin and I, working with the consultant team to consolidate the 4 modules of code that were presented to council and the planning commission. This includes addressing a variety of issues that were raised by the consulting team. We're trying to align the code with some new state requirements. We are incorporating provisions from the state's model code, which also happens to be going through a revision now to meet state requirements for housing. So Dustin and I, where we are right now, we're expecting to take on some additional staff work beyond what the consultant started with and the scope of work that we started with based on what we're seeing coming out of rulemaking and some other things that can't have a continued change to the goalposts for the consulting team. So we're going to do a little extra work ourselves. In any case, we intend to avoid conflicts with the latest legislation that is not addressed in the code audit. Bottom line, we're still working on it, but we're clearly behind schedule. You've seen this slide in the past. And I don't want to sound like we are blaming the state for the delay, but here's an example of some of the challenges we're facing. In 2024, the legislature established the Housing Accountability and Production Office, that's HAPO. Among their intended functions and duties, HAPO provides technical support and assistance to local governments like us to help comply with housing laws, which include a long list of Oregon revised statutes and administrative rules. So the purpose of this particular memo that you see in front of you in June of 2025 was specifically to help us provide guidance related to state housing laws that affect land use planning. And we're not expecting council to read all of this. I just wanted to give you a sense of, again, some of the complexity. These are pages 1 and 2. These are pages 3 and 4. There's a 5th page. You don't need to read this, obviously. It's just, there's a lot going on, and we're doing our best to keep a handle on it. In this slide, you'll see where we think we are right now, including completing code consolidation and finalizing a draft code this summer, followed by a code adoption process this fall. The complete consolidated draft and is probably going to require a contract amendment, so we can add a couple of additional work sessions with the Planning Commission and City Council. We'll schedule those work sessions, refine the draft code update, and then initiate that adoption process. That includes notice to DLCD and the public ballot measure, quote unquote, ballot measure 56 notice that tells people that we might be reducing their property values and affecting property rights, variety of things that are required through state law when we initiate a code update process like this. So we will continue to coordinate to meet those state requirements and move the process forward. And that's where we are at the moment. Set this up for questions, and Dustin again is standing by. And Dustin, do you have anything else you want to add right now before we get into questions?
Yeah, thanks, Kev. I thank you, Mayor, Council. Again, we're posting up in Redmond, Oregon right now to speak with Housing Oregon, their central conference. We have the opportunity to speak on a joint moderated panel with HAPO. And so some of those questions that we're grappling and with now are also questions of greater concern to the housing industry. And I think, you know, really looking back at the past 10 years, you've seen some rather unprecedented changes initiated at the state level. Again, as a reminder to all our viewers, the planning program that we operate is the state of Oregon's planning program. You just get to implement it locally. Sometimes how you see fit, and sometimes it's in the manner in which the state finds fit. Those last 10 years, we've seen a really unprecedented changes by way of middle housing. Some of the code changes that we're working on are changes that and major policy shifts that you will implement regardless of whether you want to or not. So some of the challenges are making sure that those changes really fit with the rest of the code. You know, some of these new updates at the state level haven't been thought out really in terms of context of a larger code set. So the effort right now is to making sure that they fit. You know, in the past, you know, just even recently, you know, July 1st, you're going to have a law on the books that basically says all housing is going to be approved. You shall not have a hearing. And the only person who will get to appeal is the applicant. That's a major shift in how we've conducted business and the parties that have standing. That's coming on, and so needing, you know, issues such as that have major implications in terms of people who get to participate. At what point in the decision process do they get to participate, if at all? And those are some of the things that really came out of your stakeholder and interested party groups. They wanted to know, what is the process? What is the place where they can participate? And that sea change has just occurred. That came out of a short session. And so we're seeing these real-time changes that have meaningful impact on our code that we're trying to write. And we're trying to capture them all so that we can do this in the best way possible, and not have a code that is immediately antiquated and inconsistent with state law the day we adopt it. And that has proven to be quite a feat. So I think we're doing great. I think we have a lot of work to do. Thank you for adopting a budget that does include some additional funds for this effort, including the additional workshops that we're going to hold with Planning Commission as well as Council. We added a couple on there, knowing how kind of the gravity of this and actually the work that's going to go into it. So we wanted to just really acknowledge that it's going to be a lot of work on your part, and we wanted to make sure that we gave you ample opportunity to have questions. So this is really some of that pre-opportunity. You know, we will follow up with workshops. We'll end up with about 8 to 10 council appearances on this from the modules that you've looked at in the past, the consolidated code that's going to come before you, and then really after that, a legislative process to adopt the code. So a lot of work has gone into it, a lot of work ahead. Kevin has been really pushing hard to make sure that we're staying on track and capturing all these things and being really thoughtful, not only about the housing questions, but making sure that this thing is a useful document that the people here are represented the best they can through its adoption. So that's my add-on.
I'm intrigued by something you said, Dustin. My sense of things is that here in Oregon, land use decisions are super appealable. There's quite a low barrier to entry for an individual citizen, especially a retired lawyer individual citizen, to appeal kind of a big project, and then there we go, or there we in fact don't go. Did I hear you at all right? And if we are becoming a little bit less appealable, does that kind of bring us towards the sort of median for like other states, or are we suddenly going to be the state where, boy, you can't chime in at all about what your neighbor's doing?
I think, I've worked in a number of other states. You're right. Oregon's process allows, I would say, one of the lowest bars to appeal, and an opportunity for the individual to step in and it kind of exact its rights and its standing in the process. This is proven to be, something that the state legislature is found to be troubling, especially when it comes to affordable housing. Affordable housing is often on a funding schedule that is pretty time sensitive, and I think there's a big vulnerability there in terms of affordable housing's, an appeal, even if an appeal is upheld and all the rules were followed, can be really detrimental to that federally and state funded housing that is on that time frame. And I think that vulnerability, this is a plug to eliminate that. But I think the state has gone even further in really kind of calling all housing pretty sacred at this point. And yeah, I think this comes on July 1st, and I don't know how it will play out, but it's a major sea change by saying now the only applicant will be the only body to appeal housing related land use decisions. So, I mean, that's whether we're now on par with the rest of the lower 48. It's a radical change for Oregon itself.
Thank you. And then quickly, super interested in what you said about something 56, measure 56, about a taking, right? Does anyone make the case that having good protections and good rules and a robust, diverse community benefits all of our housing prices, and therefore it's a gain and not a loss? Or has that argument not been put forward?
That argument hasn't been written into state law the way the other argument has been.
Thank you. Other questions, comments for staff? Grant and then Anna.
I don't know if you necessarily want to answer this question. Given that Oregon is changing its law and changes it every once in a while, every short period of time, would it behoove council to think more proactively in advance of the state in proactively thinking about its own planning development code and get out ahead of the state in as much as it can in its thinking and proactively address a lot of development code work more proactively in thinking about it, come up with some more proactive development code plans, so that we're front running the state in a way of speaking?
I think, yeah, I think absolutely. And you have in the past, and now we have to fix some of that. So, for example, when we adopted the Middle Housing Code, that was not a code that was required to be adopted by the city. The city got out in front of that issue on its own initiative and actually beat the state to having that code in place. Subsequently, the state has changed its rules that are now will preempt those. So we have to go back and fix rules that I think, personally, I think, with some amount of bias, we have a better code set that's easier and makes more sense to use and is actually tracks a lot better, is more user friendly. And I now have a state code that is going to preempt it, so I have to fix it. I also see some state legislation coming through. It's in rulemaking right now. It's called MOHR legislation, MOHR. that starts to impact some of the work that we've done also in middle housing for pre-approved plans that we're going to have to reconcile. So I always say, yeah, we should not just be chasing the state. I believe that, we should be, trying to chart our own initiatives and when, write those to as we see fit. But the state can come in and change things even to be less progressive than what you have, and I have to fix it and I have to reconcile those. So I don't think that's cause to ever stop trying to work forward, but when you have preemptive laws that you have to match, it creates situations.
They can, but if we've already gone through and made a good amount of progress, let's say, and things already exist in a certain way, then they already exist in a certain way. So if we've already made a good amount of progress, then and they make the law to perhaps change things to not in a way that the collective of Hood River wishes them to be, and it's too late and we already have a town that we like, then oh no, the state's made things that we don't really like. We already have perhaps a town that we really like. So, for example, should the state choose to act in a way that we don't wish. But if we're more proactive in actually thinking about these things as a council in advance and developing that more proactively, that's perhaps something that we can actually do. So, thanks.
Yeah. My one concern on that too is, when we have state legislation that undercuts what we've done, that we've been proactive on, for me, that's frustrating. And I think that's frustrating to the people that we talk with and we hear from. We spend, and you spend political capital hearing from people. We get excited about it. We advertise, we bring people in, we do the work, we start to get it rolling, and then that legislation becomes kind of limited by kind of, I would call it more generic legislation that often, limits some of the effectiveness. And I think that's, as a practitioner and for the city, that is frustrating to me, that we do the things that the counselor is talking about. We get out in front of it, and all of a sudden we end up with watered down approaches that hurt what we get after. And it hurts the confidence of the people that come and speak with us, especially when some of these things come from out of state, or excuse me, out of the county and from the state, and they've never got an opportunity to speak to those. And I think that's a real struggle. And that's actually a struggle I'm going to talk about tomorrow with our friends at HAPO and, and local implementation.
Anna, and then Gladys, I think.
I'd like to understand a little bit better if the end of the year fall approval deadline is a hard deadline that we have for some reason, or if it's something that we can push a little bit, because I think it makes a lot more sense to try to take our time and write something that you guys don't have to go back and address later, given that things are changing. Plus, the memo that we received said that that the process has been structured to provide multiple opportunities for community engagement. But I've done some checking. We had 2 interviews, one in 2024, like June, July 2024, with a group of people. And I'd like to better understand how those folks were, individuals were selected. And then we had one late last year, right around the holidays. And I saw that, there was a public informational video. I went and looked at that. It was posted in September of 2025. And as of today, I don't think counting my view, there's been 62 views. So I think in addition to like some changes that are happening at the legislative and state level, does it make sense for us to just kind of push this out a little bit so that we're doing it carefully, methodically, making sure that we're getting input from the actual people in our community that are using this code, and making sure that it fits with what the state is changing? So all that to say, is December a hard deadline?
I don't think it's a hard deadline, Counselor. We do have a contract with a consulting team, and there was an anticipated sort of end of project date. We certainly can work with them as needed. I would, I guess, remind you that when we started the project, we really did talk about a policy neutral set of code amendments. And so the scope of work for the project was set up in a manner where maybe the amount of public engagement isn't as robust as you might expect it if we were going through a lot of big policy changes. What we're talking about now is the state has kind of created some policy changes for us. And regardless of engagement with the community, we're going to need to move forward with some of those changes to meet state requirements and avoid litigation and other challenges. So short way of saying, I think we could extend the process. We would need to discuss that with a consulting team. Dustin?
Yeah, I think Kevin's right. We did a series of interested party interviews, and I think there was 2 tranches of them, but I think they were over. Kev, do you recall, were they 12 each?
In terms of number of participants, or?
No, we had a number of groups.
So we initially, spoke with council about groups who might be appropriate for us to interview, who would bring different perspectives to the table, those including housing developers, affordable housing developers specifically, long list. And we've got this documented for you, of course. We reached out to a lot of folks. We didn't necessarily have everybody participate. So the list of people who actually were in those interviews may be shorter than you would expect or desire. But I think we did get a pretty good amount of feedback from those who did participate, representing a variety of different interests. So I feel like the information that we got out of the code audit was quite helpful. And the direction that we've gotten early in this process for the code update from stakeholder groups and from topic of the week questions have been helpful and informative as we've been working on the code update.
Gladys, do you mind if I reply? I just want to express a different view, and I hear you. Of course, we want to have the input. To my daily operation, like, this has been so careful and so methodical. And in my opinion, we lose engagement because people are like, oh my God, this is going to take until 2028. And so slowing down also has a cost to me in terms of it's difficult to motivate people to engage with something that seems so glacial. No offense to the glacial process. So I'm not dying to push it out. Gladys and then Ben.
I was debating on that real quick. Also, if memory serves, I believe that there's more public engagement on the timeline because there's a public hearing, I believe, at the end of it, which involves obviously public participation. I don't remember if there was something specifically along with module 4. I thought there was, but I know there's more coming down the pike in terms of engagement.
So as we consolidate those 4 modules of code and try to address some of these other issues coming from the state, anticipate bringing a consolidated document back to the Planning Commission and City Council. The initial scope of work for the project just had 1 work session with each body before then finalizing a code update document, a draft code that would then be presented through a code adoption process, public hearings by the Planning Commission and Council. And what we're talking about with the consulting team right now is adding 2 more Planning Commission work sessions, 2 more City Council work sessions. So we can do kind of a broad overview of what we have worked on at a first work session and then get into some of the details in following work sessions. Again, refining that final code document before it is made available for the hearing process.
Okay, I had 2 questions, but something that you mentioned, now I have 3. You mentioned planning commission meetings and council work sessions. Are those separate, or maybe is one of them combined so that it's both groups meeting at the same time?
This time things are scoped for separate work sessions
Separate.
by the Planning Commission and
Yeah.
Council. And then once we get into the code adoption process, the sequence is Planning Commission, public hearings, make a recommendation to Council, ordinance adoption through Council. So right now we don't have it scoped for joint meetings, but certainly could discuss that with the consulting team.
Yeah, I don't know how my peers feel about that, but I would be open to having a meeting or a work session with the planning committee as well, so that we can hear each other's thoughts. So maybe just combining one of those meetings so that it's all of us. I hear what you're saying, Counselor Cavalieri, and it sounds like you're going to go back to the consulting team to understand what is within their scope. Sounds like there may be some updates to that scope. And then in addition, what staff is actually able to do in order to meet this deadline for the end of this year. In regards to some of the middle housing Oregon homes, I hadn't heard of that. But what I did find was that the city of Bend, for example, has 5 approved permit-ready plans that are specific to ADU. And so I was curious if Dustin or Kevin, if you see the city replicating something like that when it comes to middle housing to the more homes?
Justin, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, on the ADU side, not to outdo Bend, the city of Eugene actually had competition for local architects, and I think they have almost 20 prefab or pre-approved ADUs from Oregon Stamps that allow people to go back and buy at a discount from the and have them shipped to their site. I've been in contact with Eugene about that program. I've also been in contact and have a meeting next of the many meetings I've had, another meeting next week with the city of the Dalles. We have a little different building code requirements just because where we are in the state, but some of those pre-approved ADUs is something we are definitely I'm looking at it now, regardless of what the code does. So I don't need the code to fix anything in that. That's just a program that we're working on because it's a good idea, and it doesn't really alienate the code or conflict with the code now. It's just another thing to do. So I like the idea. People are starting to do it. The state had intended to get pre-approved ADUs as well as a couple single unit dwellings off. That just continues to be on their to-do list. So the cities have started taking it upon themselves to do this work.
Thank you. I mean, it was a little bit to what Counselor Polson was getting to, is what can we do to be proactive to try and get ahead, and having I'll look more into Eugene. That's really incredible to hear that they have up to 20 to really streamline the permitting process to make it more efficient, I'd say, for builders to build a variety of types of housing, especially those that we have prioritized. Earlier in this year, during the short session, there was the one-time expansion of the urban growth boundary, and it was specifically for homes that were for individuals that were 60 or older. Do you foresee that that is something that we, for example, could tap into, or as you have a long list of items that you're looking right to potentially update based on the state, is that one of them?
That one's a less of a good fit for us because the scenic area on the west side of town and on the east side dominated by high value farmland. If we had an urban or a rural reserve or some sort of not EFU, that would really give us a lot more opportunity to use it. I would look at it. The issue becomes it's one time, so you better make it count. And two, I think most of the underlying zone, which if you look at, from the west side middle over is really restricted. That would be the act of Congress and approval at Washington, D.C. to allow for that. And on the east side with the, along Tucker Road, there's nothing really that's like ready to go or not ready to go. It's a lot of built out land and it's a lot of EFU. So, when I look and, dream of what could be that added area, we're really situated in a poor position to take advantage of that. We should always look at it, but I wish it would do something more for us than it could, but we're just situated in such a bad opportunity to take advantage of that.
Great. Thank you both.
Good job. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you. We will be back. Kevin and I are working on on consolidating this and wrangling this beast to make it useful and to share with you. So we're we're excited to keep it going. There was a little bit of an absence between us and you, so I wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to, and for the people out there who are still paying attention and interested, that that there's work ahead.
Thank you. That takes us to city manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Two quick things. I believe that we have planned, as we talked about, if you're interested in moving for a possible bond or bonds, that we have a housing town hall planned for the 23rd. Looking to see, excellent. The day, that'll be Tuesday, the 23rd. That will be here, and that will be a panel discussion about housing and our needs in the community. And then on the 29th, following Monday, also here, we will be doing tours and an open house of the police station. So opportunity for the public to hear on both of those topics.
From my perspective, I've been hearing about those two dates on the radio quite a bit, so good job, them, us, whatever.
Excellent. Thank you. No other comments for tonight.
Committee reports, Anna.
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me.
MCAC didn't meet this last month, but we'll meet on the 23rd for Saruda. The plan is still to have some students or a student come out here August of this year. There is a trip that will take place with Hood River students going to Saruda, and March 2027, the adult trip for the Saruda sister city will take place. The county will meet Monday, June 15th at 4 o'clock.
Sorry, Gladys. I was wondering, and then I saw Abigail wondering. Saruda, the grown-up, the 50th will be in March. Is that it?
Yes, yeah, that would take place next year in March 2027. So that's the adult trip. The students will come here in August of this year, and then we will host a Saruda student. They are looking for host families right now.
Oh, for what period of time that is?
For August of this year for the school year.
For a whole
Yeah,
one
so
kid
for a whole year,
and
yeah.
a group?
And then HRV students will travel to Saruda in August as well of this year, just for a short trip, a couple of days, and they'll come back. And like I mentioned, the March 2027 trip is for the adults.
Thanks.
Yeah, county will meet next Monday at 4 o'clock, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Doug.
Nothing for me.
Grant.
Just in case anybody forgot, Moffett Creek on 84, both directions, closed until, not closed, down one lane until the fall, so all through summer. So if you're headed into Portland or over here, it's going to be a delay around Moffett Creek. So pack some extra time into your travel that direction or back.
Can you repeat the date you said tomorrow?
Moffett Creek,
Date.
now until fall. Yeah, every day, all the time. 24/7, 365 until fall. So all summer long.
Is that different than what's been going?
It's the same as what's been going on, but
Okay, so it's still,
Could-
it's still happening.
just, yeah, still happening, just continues to happen. Yeah, they got delayed, ODOT got delayed a little bit on the steel delivery for the bridge, but it's on the way. Just in case anybody forgot how long that's going to continue to get built. It's going to be through fall. So all through summer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Grant?
Just a ball of sunshine for everyone. You're welcome, everyone. That was it from the Region 1 ACT meeting for updates that were relevant here. That's it.
Amanda.
I did have an energy council meeting last week, where we approved a new 2-year work plan, which is exciting. We talked about having more regular updates from the governing body participants, so that might be something that I do in the future. And there's like some I think it's E-TIP, I think it's a grant something, but a pretty big one, I think, that they are getting help from the national labs, which I don't really know what that means, but for modeling potential loss and emergencies, so we can invest in like resilience and backup plans. And then working on the energy resilience plan. which is also from a grant. It's due June 30th, so it's almost done, but basically that is evaluating currently our scenario and then with a goal to improve energy resilience and increase energy independence. So that's almost done. The end. That's all I got.
Thank you. Circling back to our public testimony today, I heard Mr. Perrin request that we give him notice so that he can bring advocates to express their opinion. And when it comes around, I'm confident that we will be doing that. Is that everybody good with that? Follow up from our public testimony? I'm involved in a fun, what do you call it when you write back and forth? Almost pen pals, a correspondence, that's what I'm trying to say. There was an article in the Oregonian last week that said, Hillsboro's thinking about restricting data centers. They're the first city in Oregon. No one has done it. And I was like, wait a minute. So I like called Abigail. I'm like, we did that, right? And Doug, like, anyway, I wrote them a nice letter from Mayor Paul, and Mike Rogaway, business reporter, emailed me back. And so we're like corresponding and he's asking questions. So good job us. We were a little bit like on the au courant topic there. So yeah. Nothing else from me. Council comments. Amanda.
I don't have anything.
Grant.
While we're talking about streets, if you guys want a fun case study, you can read about Hoboken, New Jersey.
On streets?
Yeah. Parking and streets and.
Oh, parking. Okay.
They 15 years ago, 10 years ago, Vision Zero was the thing. A bunch of cities did it. Hoboken, New Jersey, decided to just put basically plastic bollards around town, super cheap. They had no major injuries or deaths there since.
Wow.
So, well, so self-funded, super cheap. So if you don't want to read the case study, you can read the case study. So,
Doug.
Attended First Friday for Pride. Just want to say happy Pride Month. That's all for me.
Gladys.
Yeah, happy Pride Month. World Cup starts in a couple days. First game is on the 11th at noon. That is Mexico versus South Africa, and the U.S. plays on the 12th at 6 p.m. I'll echo the housing open house that we have. I had an opportunity to create some PSAs for both of those on the radio with Tim, and that was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Yeah, was that First Friday though, working. And yeah, great attendance. I think it's always kind of one of the best ones that that happens. So yeah.
Anna.
It was fun. I watched it from my window. I was working and then I got to see the end of the party, but it was really fun to see. I just wanted to say thank you to Abigail and to Dan for getting the Campbell property donation finalized. It's been recorded and Abigail said that was done. I'd like to know what the next steps are going to be for designating and dedicating and then constructing the trail easement, because I think that that's pretty exciting. So I'm really curious to hear more about that, but that's all I've got.
Thank you, Anna. I mean, there's groundbreaking and there's ribbon cutting. There's almost nearly like, I want to have like a ceremonial, like since I've lived here 26 years, we've been like, oh, the trail, the Campbell like we own the Campbell property easement. Like, that's fantastic. I want to like go out there with like a snow cone or something.
Yep, I can certainly look into providing a press release, at least letting folks know that the city has now acquired that property. And then I will follow up with our planning staff to find out what the next steps are regarding the placement. I think I had shared that the easement is pretty broad because we don't know exactly what the topography of the area is and where the trail would need to be. I assume that'd be kind of a planning process that we'll need to work through later. I don't know that we have a timeline for that, but we definitely have a milestone in that we're just another important step closer to the trail.
So I'm kind of, will we be working with the Parks District? Because they have the trail that connects on either end.
They should definitely connect.
Yeah, definitely. And then, yeah, we want the trails to connect. Yeah, and then we acquired the property, but the easement is just kind of broad. We don't actually have the easement yet. Is that right?
We have, I'm gonna see if Dustin is online here.
No, we have the easement. We have the easement in
We have the
place.
easement, but we don't have the exact placement of where the trail would go.
Right, we have a conservation easement over 9 acres, and then we have a dedicated within said easement the right to construct a trail within certain parameters. The easement isn't like as mentioned, it's a floating easement, so we have access to be a little more nimble. When I first looked at the plans that were provided, I was not satisfied that the proposed location was going to work. So we worked on getting something that would that has the flexibility to lay it over really and over almost anywhere on that property as it, it's pretty dynamic piece. So but we do have a right and an easement in place.
The fact that the easement is now,
Recorded with Hood River County.
that it's now in public ownership is so exciting. I mean, of course, we all want to walk on it, but that's also a step, but public ownership of the easement, hooray.
I'm sorry, I'm confused again. Do we own the property? Like we own title to the property? There is a conservation easement on the property, meaning that it can't be developed. And then there's separate from that, a trail easement that is currently floating that will connect. So is that right? I believe so.
The conservation easement includes the trail easement. So there's like a global conservation easement that includes the holder's rights, and we are the holder of the conservation easement. We have a right to construct a trail in the manner in which we see fit within certain confines. So that is essentially the easement for the trail built into that conservation easement that covers the entire property. So rather than a 50-foot swath that is laid out in a geographic area, we have basically covered the whole piece with a conservation easement and a right to build a trail easement.
Thank you. Got it.
We're still on you, Anna. Anything else for comments?
That's really great news. That's it. That's all I have.
I think that brings us to the end. Am I in order? Urban renewal. Thank you. I will now pause the city council and hand it over to Chair Stepina for urban renewal.
Thank you, Mayor. I will call to order the Hood River Urban Renewal Agency meeting. I'm assuming no agenda additions or corrections.
None.
Thank you. Any business from the audience online, Jen? Thank you. Okay, the first item on here is the consent agenda. Any discussion about the consent agenda before a motion? I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
First by Grant,
Second.
second by Ben. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, consent agenda passes. Next, we have a public hearing. I have a script. Should I start with that, Will? Okay. This is the time scheduled for a public hearing regarding the approved budget for FY 2026-27 for the Hood River Urban Renewal Agency. We will now take public testimony. City Recorder, has anybody registered to speak or provide written testimony? Hearing that there has been none, the public hearing on the fiscal year 2026-2027 approved budget is now closed. Will?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Stepina. Members of the URA board, the proposed budget was reviewed by the URA Budget Committee on May 13th and approved as proposed. The approved budget coming under the Budget Committee for the Columbia Cascade District and Waterfront Districts, prioritizing funds prioritization and delivery of final investments ahead of the closure of those districts. The Heights District funds the first three projects, taking the first three projects of the Heights Streetscape Plan to full design and construction documents. The West Side District continues to fund the modest housing construction incentive and moves forward the Mount Adams roundabout design. And then for the general fund of the URA, through contracts with the city, working on exploring the city's next housing investment, supporting the November Public Safety and Housing Bond Information and Engagement Campaign, and also operating the city's moderate income revolving loan program. So those are the highlights of the FY27 budget. If there are no amendments, there is a suggested motion adopting the approved budget in your packet.
Okay. Any questions for Will? If there are no, go ahead, Grant.
Is it URA budget 03 or 02? Is
Thank you for that.
motion says 2, but in the
03, the supplemental budget coming up later tonight is 02.
Okay.
Clarify. Any further clarifications, questions? Then if someone would like to make a motion, there is a suggested motion. Just make sure you amend it to 2026 URA-03. Anyone like to make a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-URA-03, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2026-27.
Moved by Grant,
Second.
second by Paul Blackburn. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Budget passes. Thank you all. IGA.
Yeah, thank you. So we have an amendment to the IGA with the city for administration of citywide programs by the agency. As a reminder, this is a catch-all IGA that just covers cost plus 10% for projects that the URA does on behalf of the city, where that funding structure makes sense. If that funding structure does not make sense, projects can be covered by a separate IGA. That was approved a couple months ago, but there was a request to add an Exhibit A, just keeping track of all the projects that had been approved and their amounts. That amendment has already been approved by the city. This is now just coming back to the URA board to also approve that same amendment. Again, only adding the Exhibit A.
Okay. Any questions for Will about that? Gladys?
So I had a question about the bond and how does that project like shift staffing, given that a lot of the work around the Heights Streetscape plan was taking place? So how does the staffing capacity change with the bond as well?
Well, it's just me, so.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I just have to fit it all in. Yeah, as best I can. Yeah. Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay, there is a suggested motion on page 11.
I move that Urban Renewal Agency authorize the agency administrator to sign the provided intergovernmental agreement amendment for urban renewal administration of citywide project and programs. And thank you for that.
Moved by Anna,
Second.
second by Grant. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. And we have one more, the resolution URA-02 this time.
Yeah, and this supplemental budget is for now this current fiscal year, FY 25-26. This is a year-end cleanup item ensuring that we have appropriations for all approved activities. So the primary item is budgeting for both receipt and expenditure of funds from the city for the information and engagement campaign. And then also just while we're doing this, I also cleaned up unused appropriation for the modest housing construction incentive because we did not receive any applications this year. And those are the only two items for resolution 2026 URA-02.
And the URAC recommended passing, correct?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any questions for Will about this? Anna?
There a distinction between, you said modest housing construction incentive, and then there's the middle housing construction incentive. Is it the same thing?
It is the same thing. We changed the name this year because it used to be tied to the use of the middle housing code. It was essentially if you use the middle housing
Oh,
code,
right.
then you're deemed to have met the criteria for the grant. And we decoupled from that just to make it a flat dollar amount and also then just a flat size requirement. Well, stair stepped based on number of bedrooms, but we still promote the middle housing code as a really powerful tool for builders of smaller housing, but we don't directly tie this grant to its use.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Further questions for Will? Not, there is a suggested motion on page 14 of the packet.
I move the Urban Renewal Agency Board adopt resolution 2026-URA-02, a supplemental budget for fiscal year 2025-26.
Moved by Grant,
Second.
second by Ben. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Anything in terms of comments from you today, Will?
Yeah, just 3 updates. I received information from ODOT that the jurisdictional transfer for OR 281 has received all its necessary signatures. And so the roadway will be ours on July 1st at noon.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah. Also, received confirmation letter from Business Oregon documenting that our SB 1530 funds, that was, I think, the $2.3 million that supported Mariposa Village. They have deemed that project complete and documented that all terms and conditions have been met. So we're fully closed out there. So that's great news. And then also just let you know that I will be presenting on the moderate income revolving loan fund or loan program to the Hood River County Board of Commissioners on June 15th on a Wednesday to let them know what that program's all about and get the ball rolling on an IGA for them to do the tax collection portion of the program.
Awesome. The Merle, question, Gladys.
I want to make sure that I heard you correctly. It could be that I misheard you. You said June 15th, but then you said Wednesday. Monday, right?
Monday.
Okay, cool.
My apologies.
Any questions for Will about the administrator updates? Thanks.
Thank you.
If anybody has anything to say, Paul?
I was reading a 30-year-old newspaper this week, and there was kind of a lot of chatter about the Urban Renewal Agency. And I want to pause to celebrate the fact that this structure we have now makes so much sense. For many years, it was comprised of not the city council but the other people who they would like perch on the end, and it was so de facto us anyway, and we made that change a few years ago, and it's a good idea. So I'm glad that we have this good structure for this good tool.
Here. Any further comments? All right. With that, I'll close out the Hood River Urban Renewal Agency Board meeting and return it to Mayor Blackburn to close out the city council meeting.
I'll resume city council, and anything for the good of the order? We are adjourned. Thank you. We're redoing